This is the Tree of Life, Season 29, Chapter 3. In this episode, we will be talking about artifacts of sublimation and artifacts of consensus. In past episodes, we talked about how substitution events, that is, where negation precedes acquiescence, produce infinite recursion. This recursion permits sublimation and verbalization during the substitution period to produce an artifact of sublimation. These artifacts, say published online, degenerate within consensus. They degenerate both hierarchically, that is, through the intervention of hierarchical strings, and by way of automated processes involving artificial intelligence. Heretofore, I called this the degeneration of the artifact of sublimation. Any artifact, whether produced by virtue of sublimation, that is, more than two steps from consensus, or according to consensus, permits substitution events in the consumption of that artifact. In the case of artifacts produced by consensus, these produce upon consumption reverse substitution events. That is, they permit emotional coupling, whereby under tautology, the trendsetter, or writer, becomes the incoming consciousness for the first reader, and so on and so forth. Thus, written artifacts represent channels for the flowing of consciousness from vessel to vessel, and the recurrence of impulses pursuant to emotional coupling. Artifacts of sublimation also produce these channels, but they are temporary. Artifacts of sublimation, on the other hand, degenerate. They degenerate both via hierarchically induced acquiescence and via automated processes in digital media. The process under hierarchical dialectical degeneration, described in last season, involves generalization of the output, that is, the generalization of associations amongst terms in written speech, to eliminate any nuance by the addition of the subsequent terms, followed by categorization into a given ideological conflict. In an integrated degeneration, this means that there remains a choice between those ideological dialectical in groups, which is provoked by content with automated material. In automated degeneration, the effect is the same, but may involve stages of extrapolation and deconstruction, closer to personalization. In automated degeneration, the artifact of sublimation is reduced to bare associations extrapolated from previous output. An artifact of consensus creates channels for the flowing of consciousness from vessel to vessel, but it must also be within consensus, or within the Overton window defined as two steps from consensus. That is, it is described by a series of digital structures describing a set defined by associated affirmed impulses, and the not set corresponding to negated dissociated impulses. An artifact of sublimation only degenerates via hierarchy, or automation, because it is produced from outside the Overton window, or two steps from consensus. In other words, if you define the set corresponding to affirmed impulses, you determine the tautological flow of consciousness from vessel to vessel within consensus. But, how do you define the set corresponding to affirmation within the Overton window? The automated process, by which artifacts of sublimation are destroyed, ensures that new pathways, or channels for tautological flow outside the Overton window do not remain for extended periods of time. As these channels are destroyed by artificial intelligence, each time, consensus shifts to accommodate the output according to the same sets and associations. In other words, although consensus shifts, the channels defining the sets corresponding to the tautological flow don't change. The appearance of objects within reality shifts, while the internal states of individual participants stays the same. In other words, shifts in digital objects and real-world objects caused by infinite recursion occur precisely because the connections between people follow the predicted course set by the channels of reverse substitution. So what defines the set corresponding to the digital structure governing reverse substitution at consensus? There may be some truth to the idea that is the associations created by algorithms within digital objects, which defines the limits of these channels, which determine the Overton window. If these associations can be manipulated by their makers, it would give credence to the idea that not only can the connections between people be manipulated top-down, but so too can digital and possibly even physical objects, according to their ability to restrict the process of recursion. That's the end of the podcast for today.